Street cred sports. Street cred sports. I'm crossing over. I'm Euro stepping.
Hello, this is Keenan of Street Cred Sports Training, and welcome to another episode of Time to Ball. We are trucking along, episode 68. Right, so I'm kind of dreading mentioning the next week. I might have to skip and go straight to 70. No, I'm just playing. I'm not that person on Facebook that when you see something, you see the dirty part before you see, that it's not dirty. Your mind's not in the gutter. I know you've seen those memes where it's like, it looks like something obscene, but then when you look at it closer, it's not. And then they say if you saw something obscene, that means that your mind is dirty. All right, well, look, I hope y'all are doing well. I want to say shout out to all of my Dallas people. I've been in touch with my mom and family. They had a really bad storm. My old man, I always used to say, it'd be tornadoes in the area and stuff. And when I was growing up, I saw a couple of funnel clouds. I remember it like it was not yesterday, but I remember it very, very distinctly. Seeing some tornadoes, being sent home from school in the morning, and it was pitch black outside. So I get it and understand it. Well, my old man used to always say, "Boy, this is hell. No tornadoes come in hell. There ain't gonna never be no tornadoes over here because this is hell, right?" So we always used to joke about it, and we would, find out, unfortunately, that other parts of the city and state got hit. Well, last night a storm came through, and it wasn't tornadoes, but it was 60 to 80 mile per hour winds, and my mom was a little concerned because she usually says, I ain't worried about that. This is hell. She wasn't saying that last night, when I talked to her, because I saw what was going on and I hit it. So unfortunately, there have been some deaths, not in the Dallas area, but just north of it from a tornado that hit a couple of days before. This doesn't seem to be like there was a tornado. It was just a really, really bad, strong storm with winds. But it knocked out power to over 500,000 people. And, my mom just mentioned that, their power is probably going to be out for another 3 to 4 days. So hopefully everybody's going to be able to get through it. You can find some accommodations, try to figure some things out and get the power up. Shout out to all the electrical companies that are working tirelessly to get, those things up. So I'm just hoping that everything goes well. We don't have anything major. And I mean, you can't predict storms, so it's not like you can build something that's gonna stop them, because Mother Nature is undefeated. She is undefeated. So, that's just. I didn't mean to start off like that, but it was just like, wow. Like, I just talked to my mom right before I got on the air. So, but that she's doing well. They trying to get through it. But let me get into everything that's going on. Got a lot that's going on. Hopefully y'all are doing well. It's getting hot, so it's raining and storming over there, but over here we're not even seeing clouds. Clouds are on vacation. They're like, man, we ain't going over to El Paso. y'all can keep that. We gonna go over here to Midland and Abilene and Dallas and Houston and New Orleans and the East Coast. We're gonna stay away from y'all. All right, so let me get into what interests me. Okay, so I've talked a lot about different playoff games and stuff. The series with the Wolves and Nuggets. What if you're not really understanding why NBA and Major League Baseball and NHL hockey, they're so different when it comes to the playoffs, because unlike the NCAA tournament, unlike NFL, you can lose one game. You can have a bad game, right? Or, something happens, you didn't scheme properly. You lose that game, you're done. It's a one and done situation. But in those other sports, you got to beat a team 4 times. So you don't have to. You don't have the. You have the luxury of saying, "Hey, you know what? This team we got to beat 4 out of 7 times." So we get to scheme for them and play. But here's the thing: after game after game, there are adjustments. Sometimes they're little adjustments. Sometimes they're big adjustments. Playoffs are about adjustments, and if you don't learn to adjust, you're going home. And it looked like Minnesota, who won last night to avoid being swept, uh, looks like they decided to make some adjustment. Now, the biggest adjustment is Karl Anthony Towns played very well, that game. It's still it's a mismatch in the styles and how they play, and the fact that uh, the Mavericks, are heavy pick and roll, and they like to hunt out the weak point of the team. They're trying to get Gobert in a lot of pick and roll situations, and last night he did a little bit better, but then sometimes they just miss shots, right? So it's a mismatch and it's a bad matchup for Minnesota if they continue to play Gobert in long stretches because of how the Mavericks like to play. They spread you out. They got guys that shoot, and Gobert's not really comfortable outside of the paint. But it's about adjustments. So Minnesota made some tiny adjustments, and they were able to come away with a victory. This series has been closely contested. One could even easily say, "Hey, man, look, without a boneheaded play here and there, it could be 2-2 or maybe 3-1 Minnesota." But I don't really buy that. I really think that it was just the Mavericks have shown that they're the better team, and Minnesota has had to adjust. Now they need to continue to adjust and continue the stuff that they did this game. Here's the biggest thing that I've always said: when you're dealing with a really good offensive player that you're gonna have problems stopping from scoring, the best way to defend that player is make that player play defense, because they're gonna expend energy on both sides. And I don't care how in condition we are, we're going to get tired, because if you're going to expend a lot of energy on the defensive side, chasing or trying to keep that person from scoring, and then once they put somebody on you, you're going to expend a lot of energy trying to get to your spots and score, right? So there's very few that you see that go really, really extremely hard on both ends that don't get tired. So the reason I say that is because Minnesota has yet to really test Luka and Kyrie as far as playing defense. I might have said I didn't feel that this would have worked. I thought it would work from a standpoint of I liken their situation a lot to Kyrie and LeBron. LeBron is bad. Was bad a lot defensively as far as certain situations that he should have been helping. Now, when he guards, he's not as good, but back then he could guard. I think he was an all defensive team at some point, so he could guard. Kyrie puts in the effort to guard, but even having said that, there are certain mismatches that you can hunt. Luka doesn't really guard. He tries to play defense. I'll give him that. He's not just, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. But the reason I say that is normally you can hide one player, right? If you have one player that that's not as good defensively up to par as the other one, you can kind of hide that player in certain situations. But in having two players that are kind of I hate to use defensive liabilities because Kyrie is really stepped his game up, but he has a size advantage mismatch when it comes to some of these other guys. Now Luka is defensive liability. He hadn't shown me that, hey, now he's made some defensive plays, but he hadn't shown me that, hey, now I can guard this guy, a quick guy, a guard or someone with handles that can shoot. I can guard them all out here by myself. I'll be fine. Now maybe they make the shot, but they're gonna make a tough shot. Okay. I ain't seen that. Whenever he's been on somebody that could go, he kind of just keeps his arms kind of down and he's just like, okay, just don't, do anything stupid. Well, when you have that kind of stuff, you should be going at him. I think, you know, OKC didn't really expose it as much. They didn't have the style of play that could expose it. The Clippers exposed it a little bit, but Clippers, that's another story for another time. Minnesota doesn't have the personnel to really make Luka and Kyrie play and make them uncomfortable defensively. Boston does. So if it is Boston and the Mavs, I'm really going to see how they attack each other. I know what the Mavericks will do, offensively, and it's if Porzingis is there, it's going to make it difficult. But I want to see how the Mavericks play them because all of those guys are legitimate 15 to 20 point scorers. They could score 15 to 20 points any night, on a regular basis if needed to. And then you have Jalen and Tatum that can score 30 to 40. So I want to see a better series with Minnesota and see if Minnesota can build on what they're doing. And let's see if the Mavericks adjust because you do adjust. They're not big adjustments, but you do adjust. And then sometimes you play a team where you could adjust as much as you want. It's just not going to do much good because that team is going to be able to, they have an answer. And sometimes you'll hear players say, by game 2 or game 3, we figured them out, right? And once you figure them out, then it's easy to play against them. So we will see what adjustments are being made, and I love all of the adjustments. What do they start doing with Gobert? Does Cat post up more? Anthony Edwards got a little bit more aggressive on offensive end. He didn't guard Kyrie as much. He guarded Luka, right? So Luka is great of a scorer. He doesn't move at that quick, fast pace. He's gonna kind of grind you and get to his spots, right? So. That's kind of how I feel, and to me, you really have to respect it to beat a team 4 times out of 7. I mean, you really usually know that hey, we were the better team. On the Boston and Indiana side, Boston, is better team, and I know they've, I put out a post, hey, they've pretty much had an easy run, but they've been the best team in the league all year. They've been the most dominant team. Is there a reason to doubt that if all of those teams were at full strength and the Celtics were at full strength, that they wouldn't be in this position? Maybe one of these teams push them to maybe 6, but I don't see with how dominant they've been. I still don't trust them, but they have been dominant. I can't see. You can't name me one of these teams in the East that would have pushed them to a 7. Okay, I'll go. Maybe there's a team that could have pushed them to a 7-game series, right? But I can't see anybody beating them with just how good they are this year. They check all the boxes. They don't. The weakness I think they have is that they know that they're so much better with how they move the ball and play and how they can just dominate. And sometimes you get in your head how good you are and you kind of become complacent. So hopefully we'll get a really good, exciting matchup. We thought that, Indiana would push them, but with Halliburton getting hurt, you really didn't think Indiana was going to have much of a chance. They had an opportunity in game 1. They didn't make plays. They didn't. It's always the rule. You have some people say you should foul if you're up three and somebody has an opportunity to shoot a three at the end of the game. Make them shoot free throws so you don't allow them to shoot. And it's a lot that goes into it. And sometimes you don't want to foul. And then the ref says he was in the act of shooting, and you don't foul the way you should foul, and now you turn around and you hit him, and then he goes up and he knocks down the shot, or you hit him and he moves in a certain way, and you hit him in the wrong way that you didn't want to. Now they're looking if you had a flagrant, so you have to be really careful in those situations. But adjustments, that's what it's about. Okay, so this is I was watching WNBA game on Saturday. It was Connecticut Sun, I believe it's Connecticut Suns, and they were playing the Minnesota Lynx. Now, I've watched WNBA before, not just this year. I've watched them in previous years. I do know a few of the top players on certain teams. I am trying to really delve into all of the teams when I can see them, and look at all of their personnel, because there are some excellent players. What I found in watching it, and it's kind of something I knew, but it's reinforced all the time, is there's a different sort of rules when you're playing in WNBA versus NBA. What are you talking about, Kay? Here's what I'm talking about. I'm watching, and I don't know the young ladies' names, but one of the players for the Lynx was kind of on a semi-fast break. She made a move. She was going up for a left-hand layup, right? So she's extending out with her left hand. One of the players for the Sun, one of their bigs, she goes to block the shot. Now, she long arms, and she was able, she blocked the shot. She was behind her, kind of she was to the right side and sort of behind her, and she blocks the shot with her right arm, right? But in the course of blocking her shot, her bicep, that part of her arm, hits the player in the head. And it's like really noticeable, like boom, and then you can see her, like the player, she makes a face and she falls, and she's on the ground for a little bit, right? So they're looking there. It's like, well, we're gonna look. They're gonna check to see if it was a flagrant foul, and then the announcers were like, well, I don't know what they're looking at. It's not much contact, and I'm like, are y'all not looking at the same thing I'm watching? It's like she cold cocked it. And it's like, it's just going to be a common foul. It's not much contact. And then it's like, I don't see what's there. And I'm like, yo, man, y'all announcers, y'all are terrible. Like, that's a flagrant foul. Well, they came back and they said it was just a common foul. And I'm like, what? I was like, how is that not a flagrant? And they're like, well, we said it wasn't much there. And it's like, it wasn't intentional. And I'm thinking like, well, that's not what the rule says. The rule says it's not about intent. Now, when it comes between a flagrant 1 and flagrant 2, intent does play a factor in it. But just to be, on a flagrant 1, you don't have, it's just excessive contact. And that was excessive. And what history has shown is anytime somebody gets an injury around the neck, the back, especially the head area, they're looking at it, because it's player safety. Right? I was just shocked. My mouth was there dropped. Like, well, are there different rules? Because I went back and I remember, and I actually found it. Russell Westbrook against the Mavericks, this playoffs, guy was on a fast break. It's almost the identical play, but it's on the right side, fast break. Westbrook goes to challenge the shot, and he fouls him. And it's one of those, I'm going to foul you because I don't want you to get this layup. I don't think Russell, well, to me, it didn't really look like Russell was going to be able to get to that shot. He was like, he got to his elbow. So it wasn't like he wasn't close, but he wouldn't have got it. So it's going to be one of them hard fouls. You get two, no layups, get two free throws. But in the course of him fouling him, he hit him across the head, almost identical with his arm, right? Oh, it's a flagrant one, easy. They reviewed it, and then the announcer like, "Oh, well, that's a easy. That's a flagrant. Yeah, that's easy. What are we looking at?" So it's a flagrant run, and I'm like, "Well, what's the difference? Is a WNBA allowed to? Okay, I'm gonna say it. In the WNBA, are you allowed to knock the shit out of each other with no consequences and it's common foul? Look, I'm I'm not gonna say I'm for it because sometimes I don't think any of these plays were dirty. They didn't look dirty to me. I've seen where you can kind of tell like they're really trying to foul them hard, maybe not hurt them, but foul them hard, and it's a dirty play, right? Neither one of those appeared to me to be dirty, but those were both flagrant one fouls. Now, I don't know if they're going to start looking at it like that because here's the thing. You can't have discrepancies. Obviously, in the women's game, it's a little bit more physical. Women aren't as athletic and quick-footed when it comes to certain things. But now you have more eyes on on this sport. There's going to have to be an adjustment to where they have to tidy those things up because I don't see how it wasn't a flagrant. I don't see how it wasn't a flagrant one. And I've seen it multiple times. And all I'm doing is comparing it to other sports, other like, college and the men's. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's just the way they call the WNBA. Maybe it's different. It shouldn't be. It should not be. So, yeah, because I've seen how physical it is on the women's side, and a lot of that is, some women aren't as athletic as others. So when you have some women that are more athletic, you see things, the play, the way they get to their spots, the way they're moving and stuff. And then you have some women that aren't as athletic and they have a hard time, moving to the spots that they need to get to. It's kind of the same because on the men's side, a lot of bigs seem to be kind of slow. Like Rudy Gobert is not athletic. He seems like he's athletic, but he's kind of slow footed, right? So Joker can move his feet, but he's a little bit slower. He's semi-athletic, but he's not athletic like Bam Adebayo or who else can I think of that? I'm trying to think. Like a David Robinson back in the day, or Akeem Olajuwon, even Shaq. Shaq was big, but Shaq was super athletic, right? So you start to have more players that are more athletic, and I think as the WNBA goes, as the years go by, the players, they're gonna be trained more in different ways, and you're gonna have some people that become more athletic, right? And that's just natural flow of the thing. But my God, you can't be knocking the shit out of somebody and whacking them across the head, and it's clear, and you say, oh, it's just a common foul. So that's something that I think we need to pay attention to going forward, because I know if you want these eyes, you're gonna start having a lot of criticism about, damn, are y'all letting them beat each other up like that? Y'all gotta call these games better because people don't want to see these kinds of fouls. It's not good for the game. They took it out of the NBA. I mean, it's still there, but you don't see nearly as many hard fouls in rough play as you did back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Okay, this last part is I was talking with a friend of mine. They different friends. They have different whether it's here in El Paso or out of the city, and they have travel teams. And they're always, if they're out of town in a big event, and sometimes they run across a team from El Paso, hey man, we was over here at this tournament we played, there was a team from El Paso, this team and stuff like this. Well, I had somebody that was asking because I guess they were out and they were talking about how, and it wasn't like they were spotlighting an El Paso team, but they know certain kids, and some of these kids should be playing on a older group. So, like for instance, if you're not familiar with going and playing in tournaments, And a lot of these AU, top style divisions, you're gonna have divisions where you have maybe 16U, okay, or 17U. Now, 16U usually means that you have to, all players have to be 16 and under, right? You can't have a 17-year-old playing under 16. If you have 15U, can't have any 16-year-old kids playing on 15U. Now you have some where they'll kind of do it by grade. So, for instance, you might have a bracket or a thing where, like, you have ninth graders, right? And ninth graders are supposed to comprise this team. Now, some teams will comprise their ninth grade group of eighth graders that will be freshmen, because some people feel once your season is over, you're on the next classification. So if you just finished your basketball season as a freshman, you're now a JV player, right? If you play freshman that first year, you're now a JV player. Some teams look at it like, no, you're on freshman until school season starts. So it's different with how you do it. But what some teams are doing is, from what I've seen, and this was not just one person, what some teams are doing is they're going out of town. They're kind of playing their older kids that technically should be playing with the older group, kind of playing them with a younger group. And then they're playing in brackets that aren't top tier brackets. So they're winning, right? And they're winning, and they still got to win. But it's almost like what somebody says, like you have a varsity level team and you're playing in the JV division. And it does no good for your players, because they're not number one playing against the best talent. They're probably not being as exposed to schools or colleges that are there scouting, because they're not playing against good talent. But what it was explained to me is, well, some of these teams like to get lots of wins. So when they get all of these wins, number one, it's like, hey, look, we went out here and we won, so we're the best team, in the city, or whatever, however they want it to look. Second thing is to reach like the national tournaments and stuff for some of these programs and tournaments and stuff. To reach the national part, you have to participate in a certain amount, and then you have to have a certain amount of points or system or record, right? So like if you participated in 3 of these tournaments, and out of the 3 tournaments your overall record was like 4-8 or something like that, because like let's say you play 4 games in each one, so that's 12 games. So let's say you end up 4-8, you're probably not going to the big dance, as they say, or the top tier tournament. So you have to win a certain amount of games to be able to qualify for them. And some of these teams are playing less competition, lesser divisions, so they can up their stats and have a really good, impressive record, and then go out and play. But on top of that, they're not playing to the level that they should be. And my question is, how is it that these organizations that are running these events aren't catching them? Because it seems like it's a thing. That's kind of what the read I'm getting. It's a thing. You go out, and it's it's on the girl side and on the boy side. You go out, you get a pretty good team. You play in a lower bracket where you can probably be one of the better teams. You have a mixture of team kids that probably you might have 2 or 3 kids that probably should be playing up, and you get them in, and you do well, and you come back and you boast to everybody wherever you're at. And I'm not saying it's just El Paso. This is everywhere, right? But you come back, yeah, I was up there. We was killing. We went undefeated, man. We was dragging them dudes, like, and then somebody be like, yeah, you was playing in the lower division. See, I've learned And I understand because I'll say it again. People don't understand how much reach my organization has. People don't understand that sometimes I'll get a email or a text or a phone call or a message like, "Hey, you know this team such and such?" Like, yeah, I know 'em. Yeah, hey man, they up here and they acting like they big and bad, but they playing in the freshman division and they got a group full of seniors. Oh, really? Yeah, yeah. And then you'll see that team maybe post. Now, I'm not saying it was that drastic because that shouldn't happen, but I've seen teams go and play uh, in certain things, and you can look at the level because honestly, some of these tournaments, if you're going to be in the top division, you have to have certain requirements. Like those tournament directors won't allow you to be in the top division unless you have two Division 1 players or three Division 1 players on your team, or you have a good core group that has done well the past couple of years in that tournament. Then they'll say, okay, yeah, we'll put you in. You will let you go, right? Most of the times you play in the lower divisions because you can't get to the top divisions. But like if you have a team that should be playing in the top division and you play a division lower and you're killing, that's not really anything to be impressed about because my understanding of travel ball, exposure travel ball, is you're going to get your kids exposed and opportunities. Now, you do have to compete. So if you're getting blasted by 40 each game and you got a couple of really good players, then people are going to say, well, how good are they? If they're really good, you shouldn't be getting blasted by 30 or 40. The game should be somewhat competitive, right? But it's a thing. It's a growing thing, and it's a thing that needs to be addressed. Like coaches, if you're doing this, you should be ashamed of yourself. Parents, if you're doing this, if you're honestly letting your child play on a team where you know your child is going to be dominant, they're not going to be tested, you're doing them a disservice. Because if you're trying to go to play college ball, you're going to get tested. Coaches aren't gonna recruit somebody that, oh, hey man, this person's been dominant. Yeah, but they're a 6'10" junior and they've been playing against third graders, right? 6'10" junior in high school and they've been dominating sixth grade kids. Yeah, of course they're gonna be dominant. But when you put that 6'10" junior playing against some other 6'8" and 6'9" and up and some really fast and athletic guards that are also juniors, how well does that person play? So we need to get a handle on it because it's almost like a form of reclassification, in sports. Like, yo, just play where you're supposed to play. It's okay if you get your head beat in. It happens. That's the road. Most teams, except for the really big teams that just recruit nationally and have all of these top players across the country, most of the teams, you're going to take your lumps at first, right? Put your team where they should be. Stop trying to accumulate all of these wins and stuff. Cause that doesn't it's not it doesn't look good upon your program when it's time to really show that your players can compete. If your players are all really good, but then you go play against really good competition and you get smashed, now we got to look at how good the competition you was playing and how good your team was. So play up to your level of competition and stop trying to, get these falsely looking records just to show that you are apparently tops. And that's what some of them do, and I understand why they do it, but to me it doesn't serve the purpose of actual competition. Okay, so let me get down to my basketball ideology. Last week I was pointing out film breakdown. How do things I teach translate into games? Uh, I'm gonna point out something that I spotlighted that I saw in one of the Maverick games. Now I believe it was. I want to say it was game two. Was it game two? I think it was game two. It could have been game three. I'm not really sure. I can't remember. It's like all the stuff going on. Well, okay, so Here's what I want to point out. In game 2 or 3, it was one of those games. Um, it was the decision on a last second, shot by Luka that ended up winning the game. All right, so you know, I was going through it, and it was a lot of these questions. So I was posing the question like, what's the best solution to dealing with Luka, right? So here's the scenario: they ran a pick and roll. So Jaden McDaniels was guarding Luka. Ball's inbounded. They're on right side, somewhere outside the half court circle. So he gets the ball. Derek Lively comes up and sets a screen for him. Luka uses the screen, and there's a switch on Rudy Gobert. So now Rudy Gobert is switched on him, and Luka, dances with him, makes him dance, and then gets his 3-pointer shot to ice the game, right? Or actually to go up one, and it they won the game. So there was all of this stuff about it, and I here's my take on it, and then I'll liken it to what I've worked on with kids when it comes to this kind of stuff. Number one, I wouldn't have switched Gobert on Luka, and it's because of a foot speed thing. Now the coach alluded to the fact that they were going to switch if needed, but Rudy was supposed to, well, not supposed to, but they weren't going to give threes. They were gonna, if anything, force him inside the three and get a shot because a 2 ties it, a three wins it for him. So you don't want to give up a 3, right? I wouldn't have switched on Gobert. Okay, what I would have done, I would have either iced the screen. Now ice means that Jaden McDaniels gets high up, so now Luka can't use that screen. So he's going to keep him on that side of the floor. And, now maybe Lively has to come on the other side and try to set the screen, right? But you got to remember, it's at the end of the game. So, seconds are going. So you kind of can't really have all of these, different variations when you're when it's 12 seconds or something like that. So, you could have done that. The initial screen, Jaden McDaniels, to me, and maybe this went to the point of that they were going to switch, he didn't show any resistance to the screen. And that's just looking at it. To me, he should have gotten up on it, or when he sets the screen, go around it. Because here's why. Luka's not one known for going over screen, catch and shoot really fast. Right now, I'm not saying he can't do it, but Luka likes to be methodical. It's a lot like when LeBron James would go over screens. He doesn't go over the screen, catch and shoot really fast, like a hair trigger, like a Steph or a Clay. He likes to come over the screen, dance with you, or he does the little push step back with his feet, and he shoots his 3, but it's still slow. Right, you can still get there if you're really trying to get there, and not contest, not block, but let them know you're there. And look, I'm not saying that if Jaden McDaniels was guarding Luka, that Luka still doesn't get that shot. But I'm gonna tell you what, I want to trust my 6'9", 6'10" guard, that's second team all defense, that plays guard. I want to trust him guarding him, right? I'm not saying that he's gonna block the shot or stop him, but I want him to guard him. Okay, so one scenario would have been to ice it. The other scenario would have been to if you can just blitz him or trap him when you go over. Have Gobert to be there to where he can't split it, and then force him up to the side and back towards the back half court line. And if they're both tall, so they're going to make it a little bit harder for Luka to pass that ball, and then maybe at this point when they do that, you really defend the wing so he can't just pass it really easily and come back and get it, because again there's a time thing. So it's not like it's 24 seconds. He does it 20 seconds into the 20 seconds left, he has time to catch and reload, go back and get the ball and redo it. There's a time essence here. So a lot of times in this thing, and when there's some players lose track of time and they start, wait a minute, should I shoot? Where am I at? How much time is left? Right. So you got those things going for you. I would have went over a top or went up under with Jaden McDaniels in a faster way, because he doesn't tend to come over shooting really fast. And obviously what you also got to understand defensively is he probably doesn't want to shoot, even if he knocks down this three. If he shoots early, we're going to have 8 to 9, 10 seconds left in the game. That's more time than you want the Minnesota to have. And they're only down by 1, right? They only need a bucket, so they don't have to have a 3 or whatever. It makes it harder, right? And here's why I say you could go over or under. When Golden State played Cleveland, Kevin Durant guarded LeBron James. LeBron, run it. Look, if you watch the way they play, it's so similar with how they, methodically get to their spots and they run their pick and roll. LeBron likes to run the pick and roll and get a mismatch with somebody else that's maybe slower or smaller. KD went over the screen and under the screen each time and was like clapping his hand like, nah, you're not switching. You're going to deal with me. Okay, so if you're going to score, you're going to score with me. And not saying it made it impossible, but it made it harder because KD's a little bit taller, longer arms. So he bothered a lot of different shots that LeBron wanted to typically takes in those high pick and rolls, right? They both are similar with how they come over the screen and when they're getting pick and rolls. They don't come over and pull up unless maybe it's the last second and they're forced to. But they generally like to take their time and get to their spot and do what they want, right? So what I'm saying is basically having to understand how what you're looking at. So when I'm working with kids and what I try to do is I do try to use NBA players, because if I just call out scenarios, they're going to listen to me because they're wanting to understand. But when I give them the visual of the difference between guarding a Steph or guarding a Luka on a pick and roll, now they have visual access to Steph Curry dribbling over screens or coming over screens for a catch and shoot, how quick his release is, how fast he gets the ball off, right? How much pressure he puts. Then they can visually see Luka, how Luka goes over screen is not as fast. Okay, so when I give them that scenario and say, okay, look, we're guarding Steph Curry on this screen. This is how we need to do this on this screen. We're going to guard him differently than we're going to guard Luka Doncic. Okay, we defend them differently because of that. Now, some teams do different ways that they guard screen and roll. So real quick, I know I've probably went over it before, but I'm going to go over it real quick again. On a screen and roll, there are different ways to guard it. Okay, you can do what they call drop coverage, which is the person who's screening, that person who's guarding the screener does not come up. They drop back. Okay, now what that does is that's telling the shooter, well, we don't think you can shoot, right? But you're giving them space to work and operate and hit the roller and draw the defenders, right? That's what Minnesota does. So you have to understand, if you're guarding it, that's how you guard them. I already covered ice, right? Second is blitzing, where you trap the screen, the ball handler when they go over the screen. Then lastly, you can go over the screen or under the screen. And then you have the other one where it's called a hard hedge, where that person who they're guarding is the screener. You can get up on them and force them to go to the side or back, giving your teammate time to get back on them. and then you get back to your man. So there are different ways to guard, screen, and roll. You have to understand who you're playing to understand, what you're going to use. You can't use drop coverage on guards that can shoot threes that can just come off and it's like practice. You want to use them against guards who can't shoot, right? So I teach players to make sure that you're attached and understanding who you're playing. If you're playing a kid that can shoot lights out coming over the screen on a catch and shoot, you don't want to go under it, okay? Because you're probably not going to get there. You don't want to possibly go over it. You probably want to keep him from using the screen, or you probably want to double or trap them off the screen so they don't get a chance to shoot. Now you're forcing that player to make a really good pass. Maybe that player can't make that pass. So it's the IQ stuff of working with a lot of these kids and putting them in these situations. It's like, well, yeah, you're dealing with 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th graders. And I get that, but the earlier I can start to expose them to these different concepts and simple concepts and drilling them on it, the more prepared they should be when they're in these situations, which is why I do it. You might not have this situation come up for maybe 2 or 3 years. But when that situation comes, you understand the assignment because you've been drilled on it. So understanding what I tell the players is you have to understand who you're guarding. You play a lot of these, the city leagues, the high school, the personnel, who you're playing against and who you're guarding. So how to defend them. If they're not really good at shooting threes, you can back up off of them if they're really good at attacking the basket because you force them to shoot. So understanding that offensive player's weakness, or the lesser of two evils, as I call it, if they can shoot and handle the ball, you just got to pick one and say, okay, I'm gonna have to live with this. That's what this is all about. So it was a great opportunity for me to take something that was seen in a game and apply it with the kids and help them to understand, I didn't, not to say, hey, I didn't agree, I would have done this differently. No, I would have. I understand maybe, but not in that situation. To me, in that situation, Gobert shouldn't have been on the floor because, Gobert is going to be the one that they're trying to get to on the pick and roll. So I thought it was a mistake. Everybody else thought it was a mistake. And I'm sure looking back, coach is gonna probably be like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have had him in there. He's defensive player of the year, but he's a liability in these situations, which is weird to say. But that's what I felt, and that's what I'm going with this film breakdown on this situation. Okay, so 2 other quick things I want to speak on is there was a situation where I can't think of his first name, but his last name is Gafford. He's one of the centers, post players for the Mavericks. They ran a pick and roll. He ran a pick and roll. He set a screen for Luka. After he set the screen, he dove towards the basket. Luka hits him with the ball. He catches it. And he's kind of unsure with what options he had. And his footwork was off when he did that. And when he did it, he ended up being called for a travel. And he had this look on his face like, yeah, he knew he messed up. First it was the, what? And then it was like, yeah, no, okay, I traveled. Like, he was lost. He was lost and stuck in that situation. Now, Draymond, and they made a stink about it. Draymond mentioned it after that game because they had him come up because he ended up being like one of the keys to that game. This was game 3. And he talked to him and he said, yeah, hey, when you're in that situation, this is what you want to do. And you got to be ready for this and this. And then, Gafford was like, yes, sir, thank you for that. Because it was a teachable moment. Draymond, they still play against each other, but you want to educate and teach players because you don't want him to make that mistake again and see how it turns out, right? It's like chess sometimes when you're playing sports with how you deal with stuff. Well, it was interesting because it actually reminded me of something that I work on with kids in that exact scenario. And I always preach catching the ball in a jump stop. Because if you catch it in a jump stop, you give yourself that extra 3 to 5 tenths of a second to assess if you're not sure what's happening, and you haven't used a pivot foot. So if you just catch it in a jump stop and be saying, "Hey, I'm gonna catch it in a jump stop," and be prepared to catching a jump stop and do a little jump stop floater, or now I can catch it if there's somebody here I can pump fake, take one power dribble and buy them. Okay, and then when I take that one dribble, if I land in a jump stop, I give myself the opportunity to go up strong or make a pass without feeling like how many steps did I take. So I teach jump stop in that situation. When you have somebody who has really good footwork, then you can show them different things. But to me, the jump stop in that situation, and that was what I believe Draymond was alluding to. When you catch that ball right there in that situation and you catch it in a jump stop, that play is so much easier to make because you don't have the feeling of how many steps that I take. You can go now. I've seen other players catch it in a flow and they're going with their footwork, but maybe Gafford's footwork in that spot, in that particular place, he's not as accustomed to it, right? So if he's more accustomed to it, he's seen it, he's done it, he's gotten used to it. And I imagine he's working on it right now to where when he gets in that same situation, you're going to get a different outcome because he's going to understand how he needs to receive that ball. All right, so the last thing I want to touch on is it's kind of weird how and I've only kind of really paid more attention to it this last 5-6 months, where I'll get kids that we're training and they've been playing on teams, and then I start to find out like kids don't know certain things. Like the biggest thing that I found out that aren't taught to kids, spin move. A lot of kids, and these are kids who have played ball for a while, a couple of years, maybe on the same team, maybe they've moved from a few teams. So when I'm assessing them, or if we're working on something, and I throw in the spin move, and they kind of look like what's the spin move, and I say, oh, reverse spin, and then sometimes I have to demonstrate it, and they give me this look like, no, I've never worked on that. Mostly younger kids. Some of the older kids that have been playing at a more advanced, they have worked on it. But some of the lower kids, they haven't. And it's kind of weird because it's like, yo, like you've been playing ball for a while. Y'all don't do that in practice. They hadn't. If they've exposed you to it and you struggle with it, that's one thing. But to just not have a clue what that is, they've never seen it before. And I can see it because of the look is the same. It's the general confused. I have no idea what you're saying. Look, like they give you that stare, right? So it is. I don't want to say concern me. It's just weird that some kids play on teams and there are certain things. And then there was another player that I was training. This player's a tall player, and they're a sixth grader, and they play in the post. And what they were doing is they catch the ball, they turn around and try to, maybe pump fake or shoot, and the ball is blocked or taken from them. And then I say, okay, well, let me give you a couple of simple post moves to avoid that. And it was so foreign to him because I asked him, I say, well, so you've never done? No, I've never worked on post moves. Like, wait a minute, hold on. You haven't worked on a good post move, or you've never worked on post move? Never worked on post move. Well, how is it that you've never worked on post move and you've been playing post for that team? Apparently that they haven't ever worked on showing them a post move. Now, I don't expect, majority of the coaches to be able to get into post move footwork and what you're looking for, like the way I do. I that's not what I'm expecting. It's no stretch of the imagination. But giving kids a way to play at a post that's something that you definitely want to instill in them so they're comfortable. When they're comfortable, then they're good. They understand what to do in the post, and then you have to start showing them counters, whether it's a zero dribble move on the post, 1 dribble, 2 dribble, 3. You normally don't want to have more than three dribbles on the post, but there are different ways to help kids do it, and I'm happy that I'm able to introduce them to them, because I feel strongly like, well, if I'm introducing you to it, I'm gonna introduce it to you in the correct manner where you're gonna end up being successful. And it does happen. Kids come back and say, yeah, you know what, I used the spin move, or hey, I did the post move that you showed me. It worked, And it's always funny because I always say it like, oh, I guess you do know what you're talking about, and I'm always like, yeah, like I don't just make this up. But no, that it's just weird. It's just weird. So if you're high school, middle school, city, AAU, show your kids all the moves. Go through it with them all the time. Well, not all the time, but at least expose them to them. So it's gonna be on them to practice it and utilize it. And if you have a hard time doing it, then reach out to somebody such as myself or some, organization that maybe can say, yeah, these are good moves to use. Because I try to break down with kids, you don't want to use this move in this instance. These are the moves that you really want to work on in this instance, whether you're attacking or trying to get out of stuff. So it's fascinating. I'm always continuing to learn and grow. So that's going to be all for today. I thought it was going to be short, but didn't end up being short. I got stuff going on, but hey, I don't like to hear myself talk, but hopefully I didn't bore y'all, or y'all are just now waking up, where you listen and you say, hey, this is Keenan, the Street Cred Sports Training, and welcome to another episode of Time to Ball. And then next thing you know, you're hearing me saying, well, that's all for today. And you're like, wait a minute, hold on, what happened? You fell asleep or something. So I hope that's not happening. But in all, I appreciate y'all paying attention. Remember to always, like, subscribe, follow, comment, create that dialogue. I know I'm going to keep saying it, blue to face. I'm going to interview somebody. It might be somebody walking down the street. I might just pull them over and ask them. They might not know anything about sports. They might not know English, but we'll do the universal, hey, look sign. And I have them on. But I will get it. Summer's coming. Some people are busy, but, I can't expect that people are going to always be able to take time out to get over on mine. So we'll keep working at it. But in the end, I'm going to end it the way I always do. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I'm out.
Street Cred Sports, say it with your chest. Yeah. Go get it from the net. Street Cred Sports, okay, that's a bet.